Hey guys, King of Charmanders here. Alright, so we have Open Ultra League for the top teams, and this is to feature... This is probably, in my opinion, the best league to make it, because compared to Master League, you don't have to worry about level 50. Well, you still have to worry about level 50 because level 50 Umbreon, etc. But this is probably the patterns that stay the most consistent, because there hasn't really been many changes in Open Ultra League since as of the last time it was around. As you see, the last time it was updated was about 2 weeks ago, which was generally when Ultra League was still around. As you see here, for the top performers of Open Ultra League, you still pretty much see it's the same thing, okay, like I mentioned before. But this time I'll go more in depth as the patterns and the actual top teams in Open Ultra League to help you possibly make that final push to Legend. As you see here, we got Charizard as the top performer. Charizard in this meta does very well for several reasons. As you see here, the Fire Spin variation is what's recommended. You could do a lot of farm down strats with Ready Steel, and you can farm down a lot of things like Excavalier. And with Abomasnow level 50 being around now, as you see here, you can actually farm that down too and create a lot of sweet plays. Charizard is very strong against the Steel meta and the various grass types like Meganium, Venusaur. Well, I don't see Meganium and Venusaur very much, but it's still really good. And like I said, you could create a lot of farm down strats against Registeel because Registeel is actually a lot more popular now. As you see here, where I mentioned Registeel, now that Registeel is level 50, guess what? Registeel is viable for Ultra League at a much better, even though it got nerfed a while ago, those extra levels really literally make it one of the most powerful Pokemon in Open Ultra League now. As you see here, this percentage is literally 1 point less than Charizard. The most unavailable one, however, the most used one out of the top 5. As you see here, it has a 9.4% rating, and that's just how good it is. You also have Abomasnow XL at level 50. As you see here, because of the holiday events, there has been a lot of use for Abomasnow XL. Abomasnow XL is a monster in Open Ultra League, and it does a lot of damage and gives you a lot of shots against the legendary meta. With the exception of Registeel. Well, there's ways you can beat Registeel. You just have to beat the crap out of it with Weather Balls and pray you have shields and you have something fancy to do. Anyways, as you see here, it also, other than Berserker, has the highest individual rating. As you see here, with the highest individual rating, however, as team rate, like, I would say, like, the most, like, overall, the best. As you see here, it has a very high individual rating as well as a team rating, with a lot of people using it and being a lot more available. People are also using Berserker. However, per Berserker, you pretty much have to use level 50 Berserker, but level 50 Berserker is also very powerful as well, so XL Berserker. As you see here, some old things like Venusaur, Mewtwo, Poliwrath, and Lapras are also very popular, and Umbreon XL is also very good in Open Ultra League. Now, without further ado, as you see, Giratina altered, despite the fact that it is a bit really lower down the team rating, it's still very high in use and still very powerful. So is Lapras, as I mentioned before. So a lot of things in Open Ultra League have pretty much remained the same, with the exception of XLs such as Berserker and Abomasnow and Registeel, and pretty much it's basically stayed mostly the same compared to where it was before 2 weeks ago when it was still out. Anyways, now we get to the top teams. This also features my top team. I already went in depth into that video, so if you want to see that video, look into the link. That team took me to Legend. I went plus 300 points from the stuff in 3 or 4 days. I made Legend, so plus 300 points using the team that I mentioned here. So it is number 2, but I'm going to do a holistic aspect, and we're going to analyze the top 5 teams. It's always good to have more options, so I'm going to give you as many options as humanly possible. But from here on, I'm going to take the top 5 teams, because as you see here, top 5, they're very powerful, very consistent, and also it's also pretty easy for me to understand the Open Ultra League because I've studied a lot this season. Now, the other teams, as you see here, are still very powerful, but however, top 5, like, you gotta take top 5. And I do believe that top 5 in Open Ultra League will take you very far. Without further ado, let's go with team number 5. As you see here, team 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Team number 5 is Abomasnow, Excavalier, and Giratina Altered. So this is basically a variation of my team, with the exception of, instead of having Cresselia, you have Gira A. I actually use this variation, so this might I actually use this variation, so this might actually... I actually used this before, so I might have contributed to this. As you see, the lower the percentages, so in a 1.1 to, like, I would say, like, 1.3 is the result of an individual player. So 1.1% to 1.3%, probably the result of an individual player. However, the reason why this one's probably high is because I did run this team before, too. So there might have been... Yeah, I did run this variation before. But I abandoned it in favor of Cresselia because it's better overall. As you see here, this variation, if you do use Gear A, is still incredibly powerful. Features Excavalier as your safe switch, or Gear A, depending on the scenario. Actually, I'd say Gear A is probably your better safe switch. You safe switch into Gear A, and then pray that Obama Excavalier can take out whoever's in the back. As you see, a very consistent team. All three of these do a consistent amount of damage, and will definitely either take shields or do heavy damage depending on your matchups. The reason why it doesn't have a lot of bulk is because of Excavalier. Excavalier isn't the bulkiest thing in the world, and because of... Obama Snow is semi-bulky, but like it's really Excavalier which really turns the bulk down. As you see, the coverage and safety are really good though, so it's still a really good team. As far as how it does against the overall meta, it's still very, very powerful. As you see, you actually have 2 outs against Registeel, which is why I used this variation before. However, the reason why I abandoned this variation in form of the other variation is because Swampert's a hell of a lot more popular. So Gear Altered still does really good against Swampert, but Swampert can still Earthquake you to death. So that's why I kind of abandoned it. Still very powerful, still very good if you want to use Gear A instead of Cresselia. As you see here, there are perks to this team that my other team does not add. As you see, you have 3 options against Venusaur. Don't foresee a lot of Venusaurs. I've seen a few, mostly in the closer, but I haven't seen a lot of them. But they are out there. They're uncommon, but they are out there. I've also seen Gengars too. With Gengar, you're able to take it out with Giratina Altered. Yes, Shadow Ball sucks, but you still are able to do a decent amount of damage with your double coverage against Gengar, as you see here. You're also able to take out armored things like Armored Mewtwo, Machamp. You give Machamp a really hard time with Giratina Altered, and things like Lugia and Ho-Oh, which can be out there as well. So with this team, you have an out versus Ho-Oh. So you have an out versus the fire types if you can land them on Giratina Altered. And you have something that can take on the fighting types because it's resisted and using Giratina Altered. As you see, very good team overall. Abomasnow is a fantastic lead, especially as an XL, because you have play against the Steels, you have a rough time, but Steel and Fighters. But against things like Cresselia, Articuno, you beat into 2-shield. You also beat Alolan Muck into 2-shield. You can play out Machamp and do heavy damage before you switch out. There's a lot of things you can do with Abomasnow in the lead. And Abomasnow is a very powerful pick, especially if you hit the Energy Ball and you're able to land debuffs. There's a lot of plays you can do with Abomasnow. XL Obama is very powerful and it's really, really good. Especially with the fact that you can a really popular pattern is Togekiss or a Togekiss, Gira A, or Articuno lead. Those are very popular patterns. You win all of those patterns again in the 2-shield versus Abomasnow. So that's why Obama is really, really good. As you see, your potential threats are Articuno and Cresselia. However, like I mentioned before, if you do get Articuno lead, you do beat in the 2-shield. For Cresselia, you can actually beat Cresselia in the 2-shield, but you have to land 2 energy balls, get the debuff in at least one of them, and then you can Powder Snow down. Usually a play I will do with Abomasnow is that I will double energy ball Cresselia, and then I will try to Powder Snow. You might not take out Cresselia, but what you can do is actually use Cresselia and farm it down with Giratina Altered. So you can lose the matchup, but you're either 1 going to take shields, 2 win the matchup if you get that energy ball, as I mentioned, or 3 you can use it. You can farm down Cresselia, which is another play that I do. I will let my Abomasnow go, leave Cresselia with a few Shadow Clouds, and then Shadow Cloud down. That's a play I do. You of course have to switch out of Ho-Oh and Machamp, and fire types, you're still very weak to fire types. However, you can make plays around them. Your best bet is to try to pivot away with Gear Alter, do as much damage as you can, and hope Excavalier and Abomasnow can take them out. It's a long shot, but that's your only win con. I've done it before, and you can do it as well. As you see, this team overall has a threat score of 622. Not super bad. It's still a really good team. You're still going to get a lot of W's with this team. You're going to win consistently with it as long as you play it well. And like I mentioned, I actually replaced Gira A with something better, but when I ran this team, it was very, very good. It did me very well, and it got a lot of W's, and it ended up being the number 5 team on this list. Alright, so we did team number 5. Here's team number 4, Surfetch, Cresselia, and Alolan Muck. I like Surfetch lead. The interesting thing about this variation, it's actually using close combat, which I like a lot. This is a kind of, I wouldn't say it's really spicy but it actually uses Gunk Shot Muck, and it uses close combat Surfetch, so heavy damage output. With Cresselia and Alolan Muck, I'm assuming Alolan Muck's the safe switch. However, Cresselia can also double as a safe switch, so this is kind of a double safe switch team with a Surfetch lead. Surfetch does a ton of damage. Without Night Slash, it's kind of risky in my opinion, but close combat, if they're not expecting it, will actually nuke a lot of things. So I actually like the idea regardless. It's a good idea. It's not the wrong answer. Really interesting answer, but it's a really interesting answer. But if it lands, it works. As you see, B's across the board, which means this is a really good, solid team, which pretty balanced team actually. As you see here, Surfetch loses against Cresselia. However, it does beat out the Steel Archetype, and with Leaf Blade, you beat out Swampert. You also take out Articuno, Regirock, Regice. You beat Abomasnow, so it's able to take out a lot of things in the lead. Of course, you're gonna have to watch out for the Gira combo or the Togekiss combo, but that's what you have Cresselia and Alolan Muck for. With Cresselia and Alolan Muck, you can do a double safe switch and try to either take shields, or if they throw a Registeel into you, you could probably farm it down with Surfetch. So there's a lot of plays and combinations you can make with this team, and I like how it looks. As you see here, the threat score is 625. A little on the high side, but you know what? It does work out. As you see for potential threats, your potential threats are Lugia, Ho-Oh, and Charizard. I don't know why Lugia isn't... Well, you should be able to pretty much wipe Lugia off with Alolan Muck, but that's assuming it goes against Alolan Muck. Because Cresselia Psycho Cuts are resisted by Lugia, and Lugia is a great tank, I can see why it gives this team a little bit of trouble. Same thing with Ho-Oh. Flyers do give you trouble because with Surfetch, it essentially walls Surfetch. Ho-Oh will... Well, actually, both Lugia and Ho-Oh essentially wall Surfetch without Night Slash. And Cresselia has a rough time unless you line both of them against Alolan Muck. And even then, Alolan Muck has to take them out. Another potential threat of yours, which is actually one of mine, is actually Charizard as well. So it looks like Flyers really do give you kind of a hard time, but you can I can see the ways you can play out of it with this team, but there's ways out of it, but still 3 kind of rough combinations. Venusaur is not that common. However, you do get Venusaur against Surfetch. It's going to give you it's going to be a little rough. Same thing with Giratina Origins and Gengar. I have seen those 2 in the lead. And Giratina A will probably give you a hard time. But other than that, like, team's pretty solid. Again, you have a double save switch, so there's a lot of ways you could play out of it. So with the meta save switch and Alolan Muck as a great generalist, I can see it doing really well. Gunk Shot's kind of a concern though, because I'm assuming Gunk Shot's there to like handle Togekiss. And the issue is, if you don't land a Gunk Shot, that's a lot of energy. Yes, you gain it with Snarl, however, you're gonna get to 2. I think you're gonna get a little. You'll have enough. You'll get to Sludge Wave a little faster than you will get to a Gunk Shot. So it's kind of, well, it depends. It really just depends on how it is. But in my opinion, Sludge Wave over Gunk Shot, but Gunk Shot isn't the wrong answer. It creates a lot of nuke situations if you can land the Gunk Shot, because you get stabbed either way. Alright, so I like the Team 4 again. I like it a lot. Especially with that Gunk Shot and that close combat damage, if you're able to land. Now we look at number 3. Number 3 is a pretty generic line. I actually used the Lapras Gira core a lot in Season 1 and Season 2. It's a very powerful core, but I used Lapras lead instead of Gira. As you see here, this team features Registeel, so if you don't have a Registeel, it's probably going to be rough for you, but Registeel is a very powerful lead. A very powerful closer in the back, especially if you're level 51. Also, Lapras is powerful as well, and Giratina Altered because it's such a powerful tank. A lot to play with it. As you see here with this team, I can already see that you do cover Togekiss pretty well, even if you do lose the lead with Giratina A. This team also has an insane amount of bulk. So as you see here, coverage is a B, so it's good, but bulk and consistency are both very good. It's very bulky. This whole team is an insanely bulky. Even though it's a B safety, even though like it's a good safety, like it's not an A, it's still really good. Like, I can still see you switching out of scenarios and possibly coming out with a lot of W's. And a lot of consistent damage. Just because Registeel plus Lapras. All of these Pokemon get their moves relatively quickly, and they deal a ton of damage if their moves land. Well, certain moves. Mostly the nuke moves. As you see here, Cresselia versus Giratina Altered actually isn't bad into 2-Shield, so you can make a lot of plays out of the Cresselia matchup. Same thing with Swampert. You do beat Swampert pretty handily in, like, 2-Shield. Like, unless you eat, like, a lot of Earthquakes, you should be fine. The only concern in the lead, I would say, is definitely Articuno, Giratina O, and basically Togekiss, which would be probably the biggest problems I can see. As you see here, the threat score is 6-18. Not too much lower than the other ones we've mentioned, but it's still very good. As you see here, for your potential threats, Cresselia, as I mentioned before, but Cresselia, like I said, in the 2-Shield against Gear A, isn't actually super, it's not bad, so you have a lot of play against it. Swampert, and Swampert, you kind of unless it gets matched up against Registeel, you can actually take out Swampert pretty handily with Giratina Altered and Lapras, as long as you're careful about those Earthquakes. And it's actually pretty safe. Swampert and Cresselia being your biggest threats is pretty dang good, considering the fact that Swampert and Cresselia, like I said, there's plays around them, especially in the lead. Same thing with Machamp. Yes, Machamp kind of tears through your back row, but if you line it up against Gear A, you're looking pretty dang good. Gyarados is a little bit of a concern. Dragon Breath does rip through you like Swiss cheese. However, you can do some combinations with like Giratina Altered and Gyarados. There's ways you can play out of it. And yeah, same thing with Snorlax. Same thing with Snorlax. There's some ways you can play out of it. Well, I would actually switch out if you see Snorlax, just because it does resist your Shadow Claws. As you see here, you do beat a lot of the men in the lead with Giratina Altered. It's actually a pretty popular lead. As you see with Obstagoon, you can run Dragon Breath if you want to, or Shadow Claw. It's really up to you. Just make sure you're aware. I think this variation does run Shadow Claw, though. Yes, it does run Shadow Claw. So I definitely recommend running Shadow Claw because of the team, how the team composition goes. As you see, Giratina, very powerful lead. You probably see a lot of them in the lead if you play Open Ultra a lot, and for good reason. Lapras is a pretty powerful safe switch. Same thing with Registeel. Lapras will get you shields, or it will give you switch. Either one. It's also very bulky, which contributes to the overall bulk of this team. Same thing with Registeel. Registeel will give you shields, or it will give you switch. It's very, very powerful and very, very impressive, unless it's thrown into a Charizard. But like I said, not too many high weaknesses on their teams. Some double threats, like as far as your back row goes, especially for fighters. But as long as you can line them up with Gear A, you're looking pretty good. Otherwise, you're going to lose anyways, just because of the virtue of rock, paper, scissors. Alright, team number 2. I'm not going to go too much into this one, because I created this team. I broke it into ppoke.com with my crazy madness that I did. I'm probably responsible for variation number 5, and definitely responsible for variation number 2, because I played variation 2 a lot. But this variation, as I mentioned, well, I've already done a lot of analysis on this. If you want analysis or further analysis, I'm going to link the video to this video, but there's a reason why this team actually works. And well, the reason why this team worked a lot better than the Giratina Alter one is because I have double answers against Swampert and Giratina A. Excavalier is a monster safe switch if you are able to land Mega Horn on Cresselia, or if you're landing Mega Horn on Armored Mewtwo. As you see here, this back row has a lot of coverage against a lot of things. Giratina Origin is taken out, and Giratina Altered is taken out by Abomasnow. You're able to take them down with Cresselia with Moonblast if they try to switch into you with it. Otherwise, Abomasnow with Weather Ball is a monster. As you see here, Abomasnow with Weather Ball, the reason why I use the XL, because not only is it the #1 lead statistically, you also have multiple answers into 2 shields against a lot of patterns. Again, not going to go too much into it because I have a whole video, 2 videos in fact, explaining why this team is the second most powerful team in Open Ultra League, and I'm a little salty that someone made one team that's actually better than it. A little salty. Number 2 is good. Number 1 is really hard to get. I've been there before, but man, being a 2-time champion was 1 rank away. Anyways, this team is very good. It doesn't have a the reason why it's at such a horrible threat score is because fire is your worst nightmare. However, there's ways to win against fire. If you watch me stream on Twitch, I've won against fire patterns. And there's a way to do it. There's a way to win against it. It sucks, but your only literal weakness is fire. Because I can beat Articuno in a 2 shield. I knew fire is the least pattern that you may encounter in Open Ultra League. That doesn't mean you will still, that doesn't mean you still might not see it. But if you do, there's ways to win. It's really hard, but you can win. So that's my thing. If you want more information about this team, I'm going to put the link on both videos in the description so that you can find out how to play it. Because I explained it a lot better in those videos than I do over here. And actually, I have live gameplay too, but very powerful team. It played well, and it broke into the number 2. I played it against multiple combinations, and this is the team that actually took me to Legend. Plus 300 points in 3 days. Not because of luck, but because of data and everything. I lost the lead a lot on those days, but still managed to come back with a W. Alright, now here's the number 1 team. The team that literally beat me by 3 points. And you know what pisses me off when I first looked at this team? Literally the only difference between Team 3 and Team 1 is the fact that there's a Giratina Origins instead of a Giratina Altered. And I was like, are you freaking serious? I got beat out by a Giratina and a Registeel? Like, bro. I took an Excavalier to number 2. And possibly number 5 if I had a hand in that. But dang. Dang, bro. 3 points. I will come back to haunt you. That will take you. Anyways, this team features Giratina Origins, Lapras, and Registeel. Again, the only difference between Team 3 and Team 1 is literally it's Giratina O. But for some odd reason, putting Giratina in front of it is a whole 25 point difference, which is pretty nuts. As you see here, this team, well, let's find out. Why is this team so good? As you see, it doesn't have a lot of great coverage per se. Lots of bulk just because of Giratina, just because of Lapras and Registeel probably contribute to the bulk of the team. Lapras and Registeel are incredibly bulky Pokemon. Giratina can be bulky. Now, it's not super bulky because it does more damage. You essentially flip the attack and the defense stat from Giratina A. But as you see, this one features Dragon Pulse and Shadow Ball. So it's a really interesting team. As you see, a lot of bulk, a lot of safety, and all 3 of these are going to do heavy damage, especially Giratina Origins. As you see here in the lead, your biggest weaknesses are probably going to be Togekiss and Articuno. You're able to take out Cresselia, Registeel, Swampert, Giratina Altered. So you're able to take out Gira A just because you outdamage it, and in this one actually doesn't. The thing is, what's weird is this actually doesn't feature Ominous Wind. It features Dragon Pulse and Shadow Ball. I'm assuming the reason why you don't have Ominous Wind is because to hit Snorlax and to hit dark types if you can, but I don't foresee a lot of scenarios where you're going to use it. But if it took it to number 1, there must be a lot of scenarios where Dragon Pulse might actually KO or do enough damage to where whatever Shadow Ball might be resisted. So there is merits to using Dragon Pulse. As you see here, as far as meta goes, it does very well. The Giratina Lapras core is a very strong core, especially if you put not especially if you put Gira O, but like it's Gira Lapras is a very strong core, even to this day. So as you see here, you do very well on the back row against Abomasnow, Alolan Muck, Gyarados, Lugia, and you have a double option against Ho-Oh. Against Ho-Oh and other fire types, you can take out all the water typing, and Giratina O does have a strong matchup against it because Dragon does resist fire. So as you see here, if you go down to the potential threats, definitely Machamp. I'm not sure why, because Machamp actually loses to Gyro, but I'm guessing if Machamp can muscle through with Rock Slide or Payback. However, if you do see probably muscle through with Payback because it can OKO Giratina Origins. Don't foresee it being too much of a threat, though. Well, you're not running Ominous Wind either, so that's very subjective. Make sure you be careful when you see Machamp, because Machamp can run over this entire team, especially if a Payback does land on Gira O. It will KO you, so you have to... it's really scary against Machamp. Even against fighters in general, because Lapras and Registeel will get ran over by that. Night Slash Surfetch does not do a bad chunk of... If Surfetch gets the boost because you're not running Ominous Wind, even though you have a strong matchup against Surfetch, you have to be careful, because there's some things that Surfetch might be able to do, just because you don't have Ominous Wind as a bait move for Giratina Origins. As you see here, you do beat a decent chunk of the meta, and with Dragon Pulse, you're able to have an out against Snorlax and against things like Gengar. Well, not Gengar. Snorlax, things like Alolan Muck, because Alolan Muck you're able to hit it with the Dragon Pulse. So basically, things that would normally resist double Ghost, you now with that, you have the option of running Ominous Wind and Dragon Pulse. I think that would suffice, because you would still get same type attack bonus with both moves. But Dragon Pulse and Shadow Ball are here for a reason. Just go double nukes, take them out. I'm assuming the safe switch for this team is Registeel or Lapras, or switch into Lapras, take shields, nuke with Gira O, or use Registeel as a wall. So there's strategies behind it. Again, this team has to be very careful of fighters compared to fire, which fighters are more popular than fire types, but every team's gonna have a big weakness. But this team does feature double nukes, and it has a threat score of 666. I don't know if I should either be terrified of that number or if that number is there on purpose, because you're using Giratina Origins. As you see, very effective, very powerful team overall. It does take number 1. However, I wouldn't recommend running this variation. Like, you can run it, but running a double nuke in a lead is very technical and very ballsy, because if you don't land the move and they shield, that's a lot of energy for Gira O, and because Gira O isn't Gira A and you don't have a lot of bulk, it can cause trouble for you if the nuke doesn't go through. So that's just my analysis. It's a great team. Like, use it at your own discretion, but running double nukes in the lead is very ballsy, in my opinion. Especially if you do see something like a Obama Snow and you try to swap into it with Registeel or Lapras. You basically have to let Lapras go, then you send Registeel to take out Obama Snow, but then you have to pray Giratina Origins can take out whatever your opponent's back row is after you take out the hard counter to Gira O. So there's a lot of, I wouldn't run this unless you practice with it. Definitely not, I would say, the most user-friendly team in the world. Alright, so which teams would I use if you wanted to climb the legend? Obviously use my team. I'm just kidding. If I had to be really unbiased, all 5 teams actually do very well as far as like what would take you to legend. Actually, just to be a little bit on like the availability side, if you really wanted to, I would say like top 10, like even the top like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I would say like the top 10 are all very viable teams that you can use. As far as the top 5 goes, the team I have for you, like, I have a video to describe it. It is very good and it's very strong. I've had a few people tell me that this team's actually really going to really help them a lot. So, if you do decide to use my team, that's fine. You have 2 variations for it. You have Cresselia or you have Giratina Altered. It's really up to you. Other than that, I would say the best team for you to climb to legend is definitely using my team. Not out of bias, but because it is really that good. Otherwise, I would tell you to use the number 1 team. But I just don't like. I just don't know. That's the problem. I don't know. Like, Lapras and Registeel is fine, but with the fighter in the back, like with the double fighter kind of strat, etc., it's very. Lapras can work. You just have to be careful. But statistically, it's a very powerful team. So any of the 5 would be really good. If you really want to use the Surfetch line, the only line I probably wouldn't run is probably the Surfetch line. The Surfetch line is a very interesting line to run with close combat and with Gunk Shot. It seems to be the work of an individual trainer too, and they probably understand the combinations a lot more than you and me do as far as what their strategies are behind the team. So I wouldn't recommend you run number 4. Other than that, 1, 2, 3, and 5 are very powerful picks. Definitely recommend you use them. If you want to use number 4, go right ahead. However, a Surfetch without Brave Bird or Night Slash is a very interesting thing to do. So I don't know exactly how that pattern works, but there's other teams for you to try out over here. If you want to use it, you could give it a shot. If it works for you, I hope it does. But all 5 teams look very well. However, I especially recommend 1, 2, 3, and 5. Number 1, not so much, just because running double nukes in the lead, like I mentioned with that team analysis, is really freaking weird. I love Ghost Dragon, not really. I love my Ghost Dragon because it took me to rank 10 a long time ago, but, well, when rank 10 was still a thing, now it's 24. But either way, it's up to you guys. Again, these teams are very powerful, but again, 1, 2, 3, 5. Definitely 1, 2, 3, 5. Now, you can use number 1 if you want to, but yeah, double nukes are very hard to run in the lead. Good luck on your approach to Legend. I would say Open Ultra is the best league to go to because it hasn't changed at all since the inception before. If you're using a team from before that worked for you then, go ahead. If you're looking for a team that works for you now, the teams I mentioned should be able to help you out a lot if you're willing to run them. Good luck on your Go Battle League sets. Good luck on your push to Legend, and I will see you guys on the next video.